Hi Nadine, thanks for joining me today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Can we just start with, can you tell us what you do and how long you've been doing it?
Yeah, thank you. So I am founder of HopStair, and we're building a confidence coaching platform. So really making something that's really effective as a technique, coaching into something that's really accessible but also affordable, and helping you build what's really an incredible superpower, and that's confidence.
It is, yeah, definitely. It's really interesting. So, how long has the business been running?
So we're a really young startup.
Mm,
We are just closing in on our second product, and we've been around for a bit over a year.
okay, fantastic. And in that time, what's been the biggest learning that you've found having your own business?
From a purely business perspective, what was positively shocking was the level of resource available. We were entirely bootstrapped, so there wasn't anyone particularly wealthy in the company who has been able to fund it that way, and we're not funded through investment money. But there's so much wealth of support in the startup community to help you build a business anyway, and actually learning that you don't need very much to get pretty far. So that was one, but it's also just the many stories along the way of people who are struggling with confidence, because obviously that would be the unique focus that I would um, approach people for, and just the lack of solutions for it, and the somewhat the desperation to find something that actually works. So we're just in a second, what I call second generation mental health coaching apps, and there's lots to learn from the first generation. And yeah, so that's both a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, lots to get your head around. So you mentioned resources available for young startups. Is there anything that stood out that you would recommend to anybody?
Yeah, absolutely. A range. So definitely be incredibly versatile when it comes to this. So I've been going down the grant funding route, applying to the Innovate UK and EU sort of funding parts. Actually, Innovate UK Edge is a great service to help you with your IP, but also grants and other funding bits. What else? Working with universities if you want students in your team for them to have work placements, but also, you get a bit of extra capacity. Just generally recruitment, building your own team, and nurturing that capacity from within. What else? There's sort of other, you just need to keep your eyes peeled. I think be part of a lot of founder communities or founder, like so many events that might then have a WhatsApp group around it, and you hear so many bits that you may not find on a website. It's like, hey, I've just heard about this one thing and you should apply. And just being like a sponge and soaking that all up. We've managed, for example, to work with a really reputed design company in
Yeah.
the US and winning some extra support, but you don't necessarily hear through them all in the official channels. But yeah,
So
is
you
what
just
I
got to
would
keep
say.
your eyes out, keep
Yeah,
involved and be involved in the communities. That's, yeah, good
exactly.
advice. So I know you were saying earlier you also work in as a manager in the NHS. In your time in the NHS or in any roles that you've had in the past, has there been a certain leader or somebody that's really inspired you in the workplace?
Um, there was at periods of time. I mean, I think certainly before I did, so I've done my own sort of personal development coaching for myself before, but before that, but when I didn't know what coaching was, I also had some mentoring, and certainly I looked for probably which were quote unquote people out of my league at that time
Yeah,
that had
yeah.
significantly more senior. Not that seniority necessarily means incredible, but certainly I picked those that I felt were, and certainly my own coach was very inspiring as well. But I think your I think the people that inspire you, they change, they can change. Part of my inspirational figures would have changed as my own ceiling grew, and
Yeah.
I had different challenges and different things I wanted to achieve. So, but yeah, I could think of a number.
So just talking about challenges there, then, what has been the biggest challenge for you while you've been starting this business up?
Um, So, I mean, I mentioned, I think resources is a key one. Yes, you can go really far, but ultimately, certain businesses just take more. just require more upfront investment to get them right. You can no longer get away with a text messaging service to suddenly miraculously radically transform someone's mental health. There needs to be more, because behavioral change and psychology is more complex than a text message. So where you may have gotten away with that as a startup in this space 10 years ago, that's no longer the case. And we have caught up with the fact that tech in its own right is not going to help solve the problem. You have to actually figure out how to deploy the tech to make it. And particularly in mental health, which is so fiddly and personalized, and coaching in its own right, you just need more upfront cash. Whereas if perhaps you're very techy and you build that plugin that you sell to businesses B2B, it's a very different ballpark of resources required upfront, which is next to nil. So I think resourcing is a big one. That said, I mean, I already mentioned that there's a lot of resource out there, but it does, particularly in the economic climate now, it does mean that investment is harder to get a hold of. So hence why, like, just I suppose my advice to others would be just focus on what you can control, and what you can control is your own businesses and your own runway, and how you set yourself up in the leanest possible way, so you don't have a burn rate that will shoot you in the foot in 6 to 12 months. Technically, I could say we have an indefinite runway, but that means you go at a lower pace. I could go all in and say I'm putting my savings in, but that really means that I'll be broke in a certain period of time. So.
Step by step. So let's talk a little bit about the product and the people that you're helping. So if a person came to you to your website with low confidence, what can they expect from coming to you and your website?
So effectively the platform will initially ask you a few questions. It's pretty normal. We just want to get to know you and just see what sorts of areas you might struggle with. And effectively you'll get tailored content to that, which is all about what works in the space of confidence building. It's very action oriented. We're not encouraging you to stay glued to your phone, but really get out there and go a little bit outside your comfort zone, because that's how confidence builds. But it's also about that introspection that really is cornerstone to coaching in its own right, and helping you reflect on yourself, getting to know yourself, and coming up with your own light bulbs as well, and providing that space within the app to really amass those insights over time and look back. And so that's quite sort of the absolute sort of, in its simplest form, the cornerstone of the app. But alongside there will also be community, and we'll recognize that not everything, just because it's not everything that works is in a scientific journal. So Sarah might have found this to be helpful and would like to share that with the community, or vice versa. Hey, I'm stuck with this one particular problem, I find that really hard. What do you think? So there's the two approaches combined that that will effectively await you in the app.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll link the website, and so people can go on and have a look to this video. So thinking about the industry that you're in today, what's most inspiring to you? What's inspiring you?
That's a good question. I mean, I think where do I start? I mean, I think there's something about the wider recognition that we need, that how we currently support people in their mental health and their personal development doesn't necessarily work. So there's a lot of innovation in the space to really try and crack it and develop solutions that are not behind a pay barrier, and they're very equitable. And so that's very inspiring. That said, I think one big reason why we're here is that obviously a key niche is not being looked into, and there is a lot of issues with there is still a lot of a big commercial drive. The long story short, I think what one big reason why we're here is the niche, but also there's been so much focus on that commercial aspect. We need to get a quick buck because mental health is a big problem, and there's a lot of money to be had, which I think is the wrong way around to approach a business in this space. It has to be about does it actually help a person get better?
Yeah.
And so marrying those two up can be really, really hard, because if you clean the ocean, that's great, and we need that, and it's, but then monetizing it at the same time and making it a viable business can be difficult. So making those two, bringing those two together is a big innovation, where there's a lot of evidence-based solutions no one uses or pays for, and there's a lot of glossy looking things that many people use but aren't effective. So
Yeah.
I think what's really interesting for me, and where our sweet spot is to bring those two together.
So in doing that and looking to the future, what do you see as the biggest challenge that you've got?
The biggest challenge we've got is to effectively what I just mentioned is to get so I think there will be a lot of experimentation ahead of us still. I mean, obviously we've done already tons of experimentation to get a lot of different variables right. It's always people looking at these sorts of businesses from the outside tend to take quite oversimplified look. Oh, is your content effective? And and you need to put in a human into business, because otherwise you can't do it. Like, there's all these sorts of misconceptions as to what's required to make a business useful. But then what we do find, it's the little tiny things that often make the biggest difference. I give examples of, hey, you don't start your sentences with high cap, because that's intimidating over low cap, and actually that suddenly a big portion of users will be affected and be more amenable to using a platform, really, because they feel safer.
Yeah.
It's usually the tiny things you can't read in a book. You just have to experiment, and that's a hard so just making sure you invest in that time. So that will be a big challenge, but obviously can be overcome with time and that investment. But I think it's vital, because it's impossible otherwise to build a truly effective and sticky product.
It's really good. So final question, what would you recommend to a young person starting out in business in today's world?
I mean, I could be really motivational speaker style and say, just do it. But I think what I was struggling with a long time was, what is my idea? Like, I knew for a while I wanted to have my own business eventually. What does that, but never a single clue as to what that could be. So I think it's it's identifying obviously what currently holds you back. Is it really something? I mean, there's a few things. Starting a business implies that that person has given it enough thought to know that starting their own business is what they really want to do. The reality is, of course, a lot of people are driven into creating a business because of everything else but actually building the business. You've got to be in love with the process. And if you are in it for the money or the quick returns, you're not going to last very long. If you're in it for the reputation or for the gloss, for the attention, you're not going to make it very far either. So you really need to, I would only recommend people to start a business when they really have found something they're truly passionate about. Unless you're planning to sell or get acquired in like 6 months, and you can do that with very particular tech solutions that solve that, what I've mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
But if you're solving a big problem, you better be in love with it, because you have to, it will shape everything you do, the product, the team you're building, everything. And you can get that wrong and that starts at the very first day, and you can get that wrong if you're not in it for the right reasons. But equally, the work you do and all the hours you will put in won't feel like work. And that's corny, but it's true. It won't feel like work if you're building something that you love. And so that's what I would say. There's no wrong, bad thing about having a sort of lucrative side hustle that funds your main passion, but make sure your main thing is a passion project.
Good advice. So what made you were saying that you didn't know exactly the direction. What was it that you thought about or did, or what inspired you to take the direction that you finally went in?
Because of my own journey of growing up with not great confidence, always doubting myself, not feeling beautiful in my, not feeling comfortable in my skin, you know, every criticism that I would have gotten, I would have taken to personal and to heart. I would have, you know, been very, you know, very much seeking external validation from others to feel worthy. And I never put any of those issues down to confidence. I put them down to my mental health. I have mild depression, anxiety by background. I've put them down to my personality. People always call me an overthinker, etc., etc., etc. I never computed that, hey, maybe I'm just not a confident person. So there's a big awareness gap, an education gap, for confidence. But there's also no, and on the back of this, what's then your solution for the masses to help people build it? Because it's a huge problem. And so, yeah, I was lucky being a manager in the NHS. I had better access. A colleague of mine at the time was a coach. I wouldn't have sought coaching otherwise, probably, because no idea what it was or what it could do. Could easily be a waste of time if you like, I mean, not coaching, because it's not, but if you jump into something that you don't know what it is, it could be a waste of time. That's the risk. It was brilliant. It helped me a huge way. I built my confidence, very confident now. But again, I was lucky. I got the coaching for free. It helped me in incredible ways, day and night difference to my life. And the challenges I had are gone. And so it's about, for me, looking around and seeing that low confidence is so widespread, but also obviously we've done our own sort of more quantitative surveys to support that. But it's all about, hey, if the world was more confident, we wouldn't see the mental health burden we're seeing. We would see people working better together, building better and more healthy relationships and connections, generally be happier people. And so, so that's very much where the idea came from. And yeah, hey, we need a solution, because I wish I had one.
Yeah, that's really good. Thanks for sharing that story. So that's where that comes from, and I'm sure you're going to help lots of people with this business. So congratulations and good luck with it.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.